Now, let's have a look at our main news for you this morning. The Home Secretary's future is hanging in the balance.
Writing in the Times, Suella Braverman not only accused the police of giving pro-Palestinian demonstrators special treatment, she apparently did so without the Prime Minister's approval.
Well, for the Home Secretary to do that is astonishing, but Rishi Sunak says he has every confidence in her. Well, traditionally, that's not a good sign, actually.
Well,
no, but calls for her to be sacked haven't gone away, of course. Here's Sir Keir Starmer.
He must know that this isn't the way in which a Home Secretary should behave. He must know in himself that the role of responsible government is to reduce tension and to support the police in difficult decisions that they have to make. He's got a Home Secretary who's out of control, and he is too weak to do anything about it. That's the worst of all combinations, and that's why across the country, repeatedly people are coming up to me and saying, we just need change now. We've just had enough of this.
Well, let's remind ourselves of Suella Braverman's recent remarks, the remarks that have led some Conservative MPs to say she's unhinged.
Well, she's been criticised for using the phrases of an invasion of migrants and, more recently, a hurricane of migrants coming to the UK.
And a week ago, another intervention, the pro-Palestinian protests, were, she called, hate marches.
And now she's accused a police force, of applying double standards to its policing of protests.
She claimed aggressive right-wing protesters were rightly met with a stern response, whilst pro-Palestinian mobs were largely ignored.
Well, it is very inflammatory language. Let's talk to our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who's in our Westminster studio for us this morning. Look, inflammatory language, but does she have a point, or is this a sacking offence?
Well, it is certainly inflammatory language. Her allies would say that the voters are behind her. And if you look at some polls of newspapers that traditionally have Conservative voters among their customers, it is clear that there are a lot of Conservatives in the country who like Suella Braverman a lot. She certainly has her allies within the Conservative Party as well. It's thought there are about 50 MPs who really, really want Suella Braverman to stay and will probably make quite a lot of noise about it if she ends up being sacked. The question for Rishi Sunak is, did she break the ministerial code? Now, there is actually quite a bit of wiggle room there. The ministerial code says that any content in a newspaper related to policy must be signed off by 10 Downing Street before it's published. I'm paraphrasing a bit there, but that's the gist of it. Now, Suella Braverman and her team will argue that the piece that she wrote in the Times wasn't actually about policy. She was criticising the Metropolitan Police in harsher language than Downing Street would have liked, but it wasn't a policy issue. Therefore, she didn't break the ministerial code. Will Rishi Sunak buy that? And even if he does buy that, will he want to keep her? Has she just seriously undermined his authority here? There is an element of that, and we know that Rishi Sunak is feeling weak at the moment. He's feeling bruised after those 2 by-election defeats. Does he really want someone in his inner team who is prepared to go against his word like that? That said, there are lots of reasons not to get rid of her as well. The Rwanda plan, which of course Suella Braverman championed, that plan to send migrants over to Rwanda when their claims are being processed, is going through the Supreme Court next week. Would he not want to have the Home Secretary there, the champion of that plan, when that result is reached, to see that policy through to the end? So there are lots of issues that the Prime Minister is now having to try and balance on both sides. And of course, he doesn't have long to do that. He has people breathing down his neck. He has Keir Starmer breathing down his neck. He has his own MPs breathing down his neck. And if he doesn't make a decision quickly, one way or the other, then he stands open to accusations of looking weak.
I mean, the very protests that have caused all this trouble, really, are happening tomorrow, aren't they? There's no way he can sack her before tomorrow. So maybe he just wants to wait and see what happens.
Perhaps he's hoping that he can wait out the weekend. There are certainly quite a lot of MPs who I've spoken to who are hoping that he does just that, sort of lets the dust settle over the weekend. Also, when the protests take place, people are quite worried about what the sort of tensions will be like, how the Metropolitan Police will respond to Palestinians, to pro-Palestinian marchers who perhaps cross a line. And maybe it'll be clearer by Monday whether Suella Braverman essentially had a point in her article. Perhaps it shouldn't come down to that. It should be a simple question of did she break the ministerial code? But in the minds of voters, it will probably come down to did she have a point? So it could well be that the Prime Minister waits until Monday to make a proper decision. But of course, if he keeps saying over the weekend when asked that he has full confidence in the Home Secretary and then ends up sacking her on Monday, he might end up looking a bit silly.
OK, Olivia, for now, thanks very much indeed.
But as you said, it wouldn't be the first time that when Prime Ministers always say they've got full confidence in one of their ministers.
Death, isn't it?
It really is, historically. And they can turn around later and just sack them.
Yeah, let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com, because it's not just... the problem with this is it's not just about what she said in terms of how things need to be dealt with. It's the underlying issue of should any government be able to control how police police. There's
and
meant to be
also
an independence.
Isn't it? It's not just what she said, it's the fact that, I mean, will it be proven, or could it ever be proven, that the sheer fact that she said what she said will inflame people?
Yes.
In other words, her speaking out in the way she has, could that make things worse? And how would you prove it either way?
I don't know. It's actually a lot more nuanced than I think it appears on the surface if you really sort of dig into it.